This model is different from other models in a few important ways. Number one of the aspects that we deal with is not only the trauma history of that caregiver, but the attachment history of that caregiver as well. And that is, we begin to work with the caregiver and we ask them to remember themselves as children for accessing information that will then lead us and that caregiver to any unresolved trauma history they have, or impactful history. Whether it be small or large, we use an impactful event of the caregiver's life from which to begin to demonstrate to the caregiver what the effects are if we have unresolved impact through their own childhood, leading them into their own adulthood, into their relationships with others, and hence then forward into their relationship with their children. We use their own examples as children to do that, which begins to increase their empathy and their attunement to their own child's experience. So as we begin to have a more informed caregiver, the child begins to experience that caregiver as different. We hear this in the reports of caregivers all the time as they come in for their own sessions, which is another significant aspect of how this model is different. We first provide a course on the effects of trauma and the impact of trauma on children and their families in that course. We then go on to treat the caregiver and assess the caregiver first for their own trauma history, however large or small. Even if it means they watched a dog, their favorite dog, get run over as children, they might not think that's an impactful event or a significant trauma, but it may very well be very significant to them, just as physical abuse might be to another adult. It's not so much the event as it is the impact that that person has experienced as a result of what has occurred in their lifetime. And so shifting this thinking from event-specific to impact-specific for each individual person is at the heart of actually being able to accurately assess, treat, and address and correct thinking, feeling, and acting around those experiences in a person's life. Thirdly, the difference in this model is that it eliminates wait lists at clinics. Because people sign up for courses right at the start, they get a start date to the first phase of the model, which is a course in trauma and its effects on children and families. No clinic needs to have a wait list because the family is given the start date of that course when they call initially for the referral. That's a very attractive aspect of the model. There is no family waiting for months or years on a wait list. So the treatment of the child actually towards the end of the model is also unique. And it is a lot for some clinicians to get their head around that this is actually the most beneficial and long-lasting approach where you're having to restructure the life of a child and their thinking in the life and times with that caregiver. It's not to say that other methods do not work effectively for particular situations or problems. It is just a statement about how this model is in fact very different and is accomplishing significant outcomes in a 21 session format. That means the child can have one experience of trauma or 10. The time that it would take to resolve that child's impact and reduce their behaviors and symptoms, as well as the time it would take to reduce the behaviors and symptoms of that caregiver and have their life turn around to be involving corrected belief systems, would be the same, 21 sessions. And that includes all three phases of the model, which is very significant and very important for clinics that are taking on the model.